welcome. This is I Scream, You Scream, your weekly scoop of the most chilling histories, mysteries, and true crime. I'm Kathryn.
I'm Gina.
Each month, we're going to choose a new flavor. By flavor, I mean both a literal flavor of ice cream and a topic to be discussed. And we will tell stories that may or may not be totally true while we eat said ice cream. So, for the month of October, the flavor is strawberry. We will be eating strawberry ice cream while we would discuss vampire stories. So vampires is our flavor of the month. Yeah, grab a spoon. Let's dig in.
I'm ready.
Me too.
It's the same ice cream I ate for the last episode, so.
Yeah, for sure. I forgot the most important part. Hashtag not sponsored, but wannabe. I will be taking my Lactaid.
I hope we can get a Lactaid representative to come to your wedding.
If they don't, I'm not getting married.
I'm telling Phil.
No. Oh, yeah, knows. I'm engaged, everyone. There really are plans for me to be wed.
Much to my chagrin and loss.
Yes. It's okay. Let me take a bite and then I'll start
take a
with
bite
the answer.
too.
So let's talk about the tea. It's officially fall time here. The temperature has dropped. Last week, I think we had some days that were a high of like 95 with 1,000,000% humidity. And this week we've got like highs of 60, 62. Like we're rolling in the fall time. So I drink this apple spice tea all throughout the year to just so I can feel something. But now it's really time for this type of flavor. So I'm very excited to be drinking apple tea with my strawberry ice cream.
That sounds delicious.
Yeah,
and I also
just everything I want.
I wasn't being rude and typing while you were talking. I was converting the 90 degrees to 60 degrees to Celsius.
Oh, yeah.
Because
Americans with our fake math.
I was at work today. I was reading someone the Riot Act because we were talking about the weather, as Brits always do. And they said something like, oh, yeah, it's going to be like 20 degrees this weekend. And I was like, I do not know what you're talking about. Convert that shit for me. I have no idea. So 90 degrees is 32 degrees Celsius and 60 is 15. So
This is a great time. We mentioned this last episode. This is a great time to explain the logistics of our geography to people. So I live in Great Lakes region of the United States of America, good old Milwaukee. That is where Gina and I met, but she escaped in 2020 and is now currently living in the UK. So we are an international podcast.
Far apart, but closer than ever.
Yeah. So that is why, if people are confused why I've been typing out our launch date on social media, it's because I've been burned before with tour date announcements from like European people because it's opposite. Because the way we would write it would be January 10th over there. Another announcement. Another thing I forgot about last time. We have some shout outs and we have some thank yous for people. We appreciated you last week also. We just were very scared and new. So we forgot. Sorry. Shout out number 1 is for our logo designer, Allie Phillips of Allie Dax Studios. She was wonderful. Well, no, I don't want to say how long it took her because I don't want that to be the expectation if people work with her in the future. She's great. Fun fact about Allie, I don't know if I told you about this, Gina, but I'm like pretty sure she's like 100% self-taught. I don't think she ever went to like art school or anything.
It's crazy impressive.
Just for context, we were BFFs in middle school and high school, and we were in art club together, and she was always like at the top of every art class, and she was just the best out of everyone. I'm just going to be the one to say it because she probably wouldn't. She just always had the best art. So yeah, she has an Etsy shop. She has really cute earrings that she makes, so we'll link her Instagram. I think she has a TikTok, but definitely her Etsy page, so that'll be linked. And then the second shout out we have to do, also really fast turnaround time, was our jingle /intro song was created by my brother. He didn't write it. That's just the I Scream, You Scream song. But he mixed it. He edited it and did all the audio for us. And I gave him like a really crappy description. I was like, I want it to sound spooky and cute. He's like, okay, and just did it. So yeah, he did a great job. So shout out to him. I don't know, did I say his name? Adam, my brother. He's my brother.
I don't
Adam.
think you
so
did. Yeah, I think you did actually say his name.
I don't know what. So there's probably something I can link for him. He not only is he a musician, he spent many years as a music teacher, and he's been in like bands and crap like that. He's just a very eclectic musician. But he also is a therapist. If anyone needs any therapy, which like if you're listening to us, you probably do. I'm gonna butcher this. Sorry, Adam. I'll come back next week with a retraction. But he has a trauma-informed education coaching business where he'll help educators like put together lesson plans and just approach education from like a trauma-informed perspective. So that's something we can link. I'll ask him for details on that. But yeah, also he made our jingle. I'm learning the secret that people are keeping about creating podcasts is you got to know talented people. Like, honestly, if I could give one piece of advice for our exponentially successful 2 episodes that have not even yet been published, it is that. Anyway.
Make famous friends.
Yeah. And then make them help you become famous.
Yeah.
Which we are. We have like 60 followers on socials. So like,
yeah, so not to brag. But Kathryn, how does it feel to be an influencer?
I mean, I do remember everyone who helped get me here. I don't remember all of their names. Anyway, do you have a story for us?
I do have a story.
Are you done with your ice cream?
No.
This is the struggle. No, of course not.
Not done with my. That's okay. I'll get to eat the soupy remains, which actually segues pretty well into what we're about to talk about.
Oh, God.
So,
okay.
I have a piece of folklore for us today. And this is a story that's been passed down and told over and over again for hundreds and hundreds of years. So over that time, obviously it's been embellished a little bit and adapted to kind of fit the story that was needed at the time. So what I'm about to tell you is kind of an amalgamation of many stories. But the reason why I picked this one is because parts of it do seem to be true. And we'll get more into that later. A little teaser. Okay, so first,
Vibey.
Kathryn, I want to take you through a little guided meditation, a little video.
Oh, I love when you do shit like this. Okay, should I close my eyes?
Yeah, close your eyes. Okay. You ready? Cool.
No.
All right, so you are in a small village at the top of a hill that's surrounded by a forest. And you're in a little stone house, super cute. The air is sensed with the smell of drying herbs and maybe like a rustic dinner that you cooked earlier. What happened?
Sorry, Cinnamon just like put her paw on my chest. Scared the crap out of me. Oh my God.
I was like, it's a ghost. She saw a ghost.
Okay, I'm going to keep my eyes open from now.
Okay,
scared the crap out of me. Oh my God, my heart rate is elevated so high right now. Okay.
I saw you.
I don't even know how she could reach.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Eyes open, but I'm here. I'm with you.
Okay. So yeah, you're in a house, top of the hill. You're in your house and the sun is setting through your open window and you kind of hear the sounds of evening time. So people walking to and from the local tavern, maybe some kids playing outside, cow mooing in the distance, that kind of thing.
Love that.
And everyone loves a distant cow. And you're sitting in a chair next to your bed, and you're looking down at your husband who's laying on the bed. And there's a thin coating of sweat across his brow. His face is kind of twisted as if uncomfortable. He's been sick for a while now. And you know in your heart that he's not going to make it through the morning. But don't look sad, because the knowledge that he's going to die makes you feel good. Your
Oh.
husband has not always been a kind man or even a good man. He's actually been like pretty shit for a very long time.
Fuck this guy. Got it.
Yeah,
Ugh.
right? Just wait.
Okay.
And as you watch him rattle out his last breath, you sigh in relief as this weight is lifted off of you and you're finally free from this man who's hurt you over and over again. And you tell yourself that the worst is over, right? He's gone, and now you can start to heal physically and emotionally and reclaim the life that you put on pause for him. But what you don't know is that you're wrong. You are very, very wrong.
Okay.
The horror,
I hate this.
The horror and tragedy of your marriage has only just begun. And it'll be 16 years before you or anyone else in your village can rest without a monster from hell stalking your footsteps. The year is 1656, and this is the story of the infamous undead Jure Grando, the world's first vampire. Welcome to my episode, Kathryn.
God. What the hell? My episode was shit compared to this. What the fuck? That was cool.
So thank you so much. So for a little bit of background, this story takes place on the Istrian Peninsula in modern-day Croatia, in a little village called Kringa. And Kringa it's a, like I said, little village. It's about 10 miles inland from the water, and it sits right at the top of a hill, just surrounded by the most beautiful forest and nature. I actually have a picture of Kringa that I want to show you. Because I think it I think it sets a really good scene for what the rest of the story is going to kind of be like. We can put it in the show notes or something. I don't know. Well, here, I can just share my screen. So this is Kringa. This is a more modern photo, but the bones of the ancient village are still kind of there, right? And it has just like, I think, the most gorgeous view. Like, I know we're not a geography podcast, but when I was researching this area, I was like, oh my God, this is absolutely stunning, which I think makes what's going to happen here that much more terrifying. So, Kringa, like I said, kind of a quintessentially adorable village. It has these ancient Roman walls, really cute stone houses, sunny summers, mild winters, but it was also just incredibly small. So for context, in 2021, Kringa's population was 324 people.
Oh, damn.
So you can imagine 365 years ago when this story takes place, it was even smaller. We're talking close-knit, everyone knows everyone, everyone's in each other's business all the time kind of situation. And it's here that in 1578, some dude named Jure Grando Alivovich is born. We don't know a whole lot about his early life, to be honest. So what we do know about when he was alive, we know he got married at some point to a woman named Ivana. We know that they had 2 kids named Anna and Nicola. Some accounts say he was a stonemason, and that's kind of all we know for sure. Those are what seem to be kind of the cold, hard facts about his life. But one thing that also seems to be the consensus is that he was, at best, a troubled soul, and at worst, just a real piece of shit. He was not known to be particularly social. He was said to have a really difficult disposition. There were rumors in the village that he sold his soul to the devil early on in his life. And in a time and place that was so steeped in religion, because they were heavily Catholic, they still are heavily Catholic in Croatia. This is just the kind of person you did not want to be around, just a real motherfucker. He is also known to have beaten and otherwise abused his wife for what seems to be the majority of their relationship, unfortunately.
Ew.
Which is sad. Yeah. It's said that she did try to leave him multiple times over the course of their marriage, but she always wound up coming back for the kids.
That's kind of surprising. Like, because what year was this?
So he was born in 1578. Most of the story takes place after he dies, though.
But I feel like you don't hear a lot about women leaving men then. That's
makes
very...
me wonder, how bad was it that she tried to get away and people didn't seem to ostracize her for it?
Yeah, that seems very... That's very notable.
Yeah. And she comes back in later in the story in a big way. So we'll pick back up with Ivana later on. She does have a little bit of a redemption arc. So after what seems like generally just a pretty miserable existence for most of his life, Jure died when he was 78 years old. We don't know what exactly killed him, just that it was some form of illness. Reportedly, though, it was not just Ivana who was relieved when he died. A lot of the villagers were relieved too, which, like, going back to what we said earlier, it was a really religious time and place, and living in close proximity to someone who was like in cahoots with Satan created just a little bit of friction between Jure and his community. It wasn't really going that well.
Yeah, sure. Makes sense.
Yeah, basically they thought he was a rat bastard. That said, though, they did have a funeral for him. They buried him in the village cemetery, but it was not very well attended, shall we say. I couldn't get exact numbers, but it was pretty far from a celebration of life. Like, it seems like it was more of a chore for the village than anything else.
Like, those who had to be there were there. Like,
exactly.
Wife probably, guy burying him, etc.
That's pretty much it. Yeah. And there were, I wasn't going to bring this part up, but it's an interesting tidbit that I found. There were certain rituals that they observed during the burial process in this time and place. And one of them was to drive, I think it was a nail or a metal stake through the tongue of a dead person. I don't remember why they did this, but for whatever reason, they didn't do it when Jure died. And so there's some speculation that lack of ritual is what eventually led to him, spoiler alert, becoming a vampire.
Oh.
Don't know for sure, though.
Interesting.
Obviously.
Is that, you said you're not sure why they did that ritual? Could that have just been what it was for? Like,
it might have
we
been.
don't want you
I'm
to
not
come back as a demon?
positive.
Oh, weird. Yeah. I wonder.
Yeah. So villagers had the funeral, right? Too bad, so sad. Goodbye, Jure, la la la. They go home and carry on with their lives, right? They can all move on.
Mm-hmm.
But something wasn't quite right. At night, the villagers started to hear the sounds of startled animals, which is not something that's like immediately suspicious, but it's still weird. Like, have you heard what a fox sounds like at night?
Yes.
Terrifying.
Yeah, I have.
Like someone screaming bloody murder. So it might have been, the animal sounds freaked them out a little bit, but they just kind of chalked it up to animals being animals. You just have to let it go and move on. Pretty soon, though, those animals started turning up dead. And not just dead, they were mutilated, torn to shreds. And it wasn't long before they started finding human corpses, too. The first were the bodies of a mother and her 2 children who had been butchered just like the animals, but this time there was not a single drop of blood left in their bodies. So the fact that these bodies had turned up, combined with growing reports of some kind of suspicious, shadowy figure lurking around the village at night, really freaked the village the hell out. People were scared, so much so that they started barricading their homes at night. But even then, the killing didn't stop. Bodies kept turning up, mutilated, drained of blood over and over again.
Oh, God.
And eventually, the village priest, Giorgio, who, another spoiler alert, he's kind of the hero of this story, he started noticing another disturbing pattern. So as the head of the local church, he had a really unique perspective on its villagers, just because he was kind of the go-to guy to talk about problems with or go get advice from. He had all of the gossip. He knew everything, everyone. He was the guy, basically. And one day, a villager came to him reporting that somebody had knocked on his door the previous night, long past the time anyone should be awake, right? Not suspicious at first. But a short time later, a member of that villager's household turned up dead. And then the same thing happened to another villager, a knock, and then a corpse. And then the same thing happened to another villager, and another. And it wasn't long before our guy Giorgio figured out that someone or something thing was knocking on people's homes as if to request an invitation, vampire hallmark. And if you heard that knock in the middle of the night, someone in your house would die soon, which I think is fucking terrifying.
It's scary when people come to your door unannounced.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then I just, because, I didn't live in Croatia in 1656, so I don't know what their houses looked like, but I'm guessing they weren't palatial, so you're sitting in a small house where there's really nowhere to run. If somebody gets in, they're gonna see you or find you very soon after. You're fucked. Yeah. It just seems so scary, because if somebody knocks on your door in the middle of the night, and let's say you have, like Ivana did, she had a husband and 2 kids, and one of them's going to die now because somebody knocked on the door, and so you just have to wait for one of your family members to be mutilated, and you have to pray that it's not you, and then feel gross about praying that it's not you, because then it's one of your family members.
Oh, yeah, I hate that. It's like a discussion in, like ethics or some shit?
It's kind of Charlie problem-esque, isn't it? What's that thing?
Yeah. Morals? I don't know.
Schmorals?
Yeah, that's hard, because there is no good outcome in a situation like that. Like you were saying, it's either you or someone you love, and you have to just sit and wait. Waiting is always the hardest part for anything.
Right.
Unless it comes to you or your family being brutally murdered.
Yeah. Yeah.
Ugh, that's rough. I hate that.
Yeah. And this went on for years, Kathryn. Years of this.
That was a question I had, the time frame of this. That, because it sounds so like ominous and creepy, that I would not be able to handle this for a few weeks or months, let alone years.
16
But like, what do you do? Like, you can't leave. I mean, you could, but that's hard. Everyone thinks it's so easy to just up and move. It's not.
And these people knew each other. They were a community, so if you leave, you're leaving your friends, people that
your
feel
family.
like family. Yeah. And so there's the overarching feeling of researching this story. It's a story of growing tension and desperation and hopelessness that is just so, it just makes you feel so sad for them. So obviously the village is just freaking the hell out. They are in hell right now. But they still had no idea who or what was committing these murders. Everyone was just, like we said, praying that they wouldn't be next, but ultimately being powerless to stop it. And again, this went on for 16 years. The only break the villagers really got was during Mass. And that's when they would come together, pray, voice their concerns about the village. When I was researching it, it seemed like Mass was still like mostly religious, but it definitely had a town hall element to it as well. I think in part because it was such a small town that it kind of
That's what I was going to ask. Yeah. I know back then that it truly was like, there's no separation of church and state, right? Like, their church was their government. So, especially in a small community, that would make sense to me.
Yeah. And one of the things when I was researching the story, there was a really distinct, almost lack of government, really? Like I'm not saying that Croatia didn't have a government back then. Don't misinterpret what I'm saying. But it was
Please
more
don't send us angry emails.
Yeah. But it was more so just that it seems like the decision making and the power and what are traditionally government functions all fell to the priest, or at least some kind of religious affiliation. There was one account that said that they had a mayor, but he's kind of useless, and we'll talk more about him later because he makes me laugh.
Great.
All right. So like I said, every Mass they get together, they voice their concerns, and every Mass is presided over by Giorgio, village priest. And at one particularly challenging service, they were discussing the killings, and I found a quote that I want to read you because it chilled me a little bit.
Ooh, okay.
One of the villagers stood up and cried out, "It's the devil! We've been cursed." Giorgio, trying to calm the crowd, said, "The Lord will protect us from evil." But the voice called back, "We've been praying, but the Lord has forsaken Kringa."
Oh my God, I just got chills. That's
right?
sad.
It's so
Man,
sad.
that's so sad. Especially in such a small community, you're so desperate to feel safe in your own home. No one can do anything about it. Even the least religious people, I think sometimes still, when you're so desperate, throw up a prayer to someone, anyone who might be listening. That's such a, like, desperate feeling.
Mm-hmm.
That breaks my heart. I hate that.
Yeah. Yeah, that was my exact reaction to it. Like, shit, if these people are feeling like the one ultimate power that can save them has abandoned them, that is just
especially to say that.
Yeah,
you said that this person was saying this to the priest
at mass, to a priest,
in
front of the whole village.
I think that's why it's so heartbreaking in particular, because you did not do that. You don't tell a priest that God's not helping you, right? The fact that they felt so desperate and so like no one can save us, and say that about God to a priest, that's big. Oh,
I know.
It's a sad story.
It's sad. So, the service ends, the congregation starts to file out on let's say a pretty somber note, because they all think they're going to die within 24 hours, except for one woman who stayed behind. Approaching Giorgio, she lowered her voice, and she told him that she knew what this evil was and where it was coming from. It was her husband, Jure, and he'd risen from the grave. It was Ivana. She comes back.
Okay. All right. Yep. I'm listening. I'm with you.
But she didn't stop there. She told Giorgio that she knew it was her husband because she had seen him, and not just once, many, many times since his funeral. She said that since Jure had died, he had visited her in her room every night, where he would resume his abuse and rape her repeatedly. She said he had risen from the grave and had become a vampire intent on hurting her and everyone else in the village.
Okay. Hate that.
Yeah.
I hate everything about this story.
Yeah, it's rough. Ugh. It's a rough one.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, horrified, obviously, our good priest, Giorgio, went out that night to try and find and confront Jure. And when he did finally find him, stalking and lurking around the village, he held up his crucifix and yelled, "Behold, Jesus Christ, you strigan! Stop tormenting us." I can't do the priest voice. I'm sorry.
You're doing great. I think you did exactly a priest voice.
Did I sound godly?
I had flashbacks to mass with good old Father Neri. His beautiful baritone. Yeah. Father Gina.
I am an ordained reverend.
So am I. Oh yeah, that was our first COVID segue.
Yeah.
That was our first COVID activity, was getting ordained. Did you ever get ordained in the Satanic Temple? Or no, I don't think you could do that yet.
No, I don't think I did.
You had to do more to do that. This is definitely an aside. We should do an episode on this one time. Are you a member?
I am, yeah.
Okay, yeah. No, we're all card-carrying members of the Satanic Temple. We should definitely do an episode /flavor on that, because I got a lot to say. Yeah. But for the purposes of this episode, let's get back to the second most metal type of religion, which is Catholicism. I also want to talk about that someday.
Yeah, because they just straight up eat human flesh and blood and are like, great, yay, give it to kids. Yeah.
And all the gold and incense and luscious velvet robes. I love a good tacky decor.
I took a class in, this is such an aside, but I love this topic. I took a class in college. I can't remember what the topic of the class. It might have been I think it was a communications class. And one of our modules that we did was about the communication of space and how you design spaces that communicate what you're trying to say.
You told me about this.
It's fascinating. Yeah. And one of the big things that I remember from that is looking at designs of Catholic churches over the years and how they are designed to make you feel small and poor and looked down upon, and just
boy do they. For context, I was raised Catholic. Gina was not. You were Methodist?
Protestant, Methodist, yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, the hippie of the Christians.
Hell yeah, we had potlucks.
We had pancake breakfasts.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah. Those were actually fun. I can still, this is going to sound weird, but I feel like people will know what I'm talking about. I can still taste the sausage. Like there is a specific
That's so ominous.
Sausage. There's a specific type of sausage that was served that I feel like every freaking Catholic church like used the same sausage distributor, which like retrospectively it's like
the Holy Sausage Co.
We like chill over the body and blood of Christ every Sunday. So like I don't know where the sausage was coming from, but yeah.
I can still taste the sausage on a t-shirt.
I don't ever want to hear or need to say that ever again. I regret saying it. I won't probably edit it out because just is what it is. But I hope to God, all the gods of every denomination, that I never have to say that sentence again. Anyway,
I'm gonna pray to the sausage god.
So that's Catholicism for you. Oh my God.
Memorable sausages. Yeah. That's what King Henry VIII wanted to get away from. Okay. Yeah. Anyway.
Please continue.
Okay, so when Giorgio was yelling at Jure, right, one of the things he said was, "Behold Jesus Christ, you stricken." Now, this is the first time that we hear Jure be given a name for what he has become, a strigan. And just for context, a strigan is a creature from Romanian mythology. Hey, shout out to our Bathory episode. And it describes a troubled soul that has risen from the grave. So kind of a zombie vampire 2 for the price of 1 situation. And just like vampires, there are various different myths about strigan, or strigoi, if you're using the plural sense, which is very fun to say. So their powers can range from things like turning invisible, to turning into animals, to sucking the blood from their victims. And yeah, vampire, strigan, any way you want to call it, Jure was just an undead asshole. Real motherfucker.
So this is very similar. I mean, I think we kind of talked about it last episode, that our episodes are very similar in the way of like time frame, but also like because he was the first one in like mythology, at least as far as like we understand vampires. I wonder if there were other versions elsewhere in other cultures, but like
I have so much to say. Okay.
Am I spoiling? I'm sorry. I'm just thinking out loud.
No, you're not spoiling at all. You're not. Because I was reading about this the other day, and I learned a really cool new word, and I'm not going to remember it, but I want to be able to use it. So vampires, or the concept of vampires as we know it, the word is like polygenetic, I think. And it means something that came from multiple different places around the world that weren't in contact with each other. So we had myths about vampires from Malaysia at the same time that we had myths about vampires in Romania and, America. Like it all across the world, there are stories related to what we know of as vampires today. They just all had different names, and some of them had slightly different powers.
Yeah,
powers.
That's cool.
Totally talk more about that later, because the legacy of Jure Grando and what he did and what he became has lasting ramifications. I mean, really similar to Bathory, just centuries of retelling and inspiration and embellishment and all that stuff. So anyway, Giorgio confronts this guy. Jure scampers off into the night like the little fuck that he is. And as Giorgio is walking away, it's said that tears fell down his cheeks for all the pain that his community had suffered. Very sad. Small town. So the news of who the killer was spread really, really fast. And in his outrage, Giorgio gave his blessing to unearth Jure's grave and put him to rest once and for all, which exhuming a grave is a big fucking deal.
Whoa. Wow.
So one particular villager named Miho Radadish, who is the one who was said to be the mayor. I only read that in one of the sources, though, so I'm not sure if he actually was like a community leader or not. But anyway, he took it upon himself to visit the cemetery that night and bring Jure to justice. So he did. He brought a shovel and he drove it into the earth again and again until he finally unearthed Jure's coffin. But when he took off the lid, he saw something horrifying. He saw Jure, but he was different. He was emaciated. He smelled like death and decay, and he had a grotesque grin plastered on his face, smiling and blinking up at Miho, standing over his grave. Yeah.
Wait. Okay, so at first I was like, yeah, I bet he didn't look great. He's been dead for a sec and rotting in the ground, but I don't love a smiling corpse.
Mm-hmm. And that's one thing that I read in all of the accounts was the smile.
Ew.
Okay, so Miho is standing over the grave. He's looking down. Jure's disgusting body is there, smiling up at him. And luckily, though, Miho brought a weapon with him. A stick. Okay, I should caveat. It probably wasn't a stick. I have a feeling it was like a wooden stake, and that's part of where we get the legends about wooden stakes today.
Hope so. Yeah.
But so many, Kathryn, so many of the accounts say that it was a stick.
Literally use the words.
Literally use the word stick. Well, they specify a hawthorn stick, but a stick. So I'm just going to keep calling it that because it's way funnier.
I'm imagining like him like just bopping him with it.
Well, it's funny that you mentioned that because
don't tell me that's what
he took his stick and he tried to stab it through Jure's heart, right? But that shit didn't work because it was a stick. It bounced right off. So Jure just looked at him. And I know, it's just... Oh, it gets better. So Jure just looked at him and kept smiling. So Miho does, like, the only logical thing in this situation. He takes the L. He reburies Jure. He goes home. Because, like, what do you do, man? You just got to call it a night at that point. Yeah.
Just bounce. You tried.
But the next night, he gathered up 8 other villagers, including Giorgio, the priest, and they went back. This time, they brought lamps and tools, and most importantly, another stick.
Stop saying that immediately after I take a sip of water.
Oh, it's so funny. Okay, but this time, when they dug up Jure's grave, Jure was still there, still smiling, his eyes closed as if having a good dream. And then suddenly, he started moving. The men jumped back in terror as Jure's eyes snapped open, his mouth twisting into an even more sickening grin as he lurched to his feet. Ugh, that part scares me so. Just picturing someone, like, lumbering up. Blech. So, Giorgio reaches over to the villager beside him. He grabs the stick out of his hand, and he plunges it towards Jure's chest, where it bounced right off just as it had the night before, because it's a fucking stick.
What
Panicking, Giorgio then tried to exorcise the beast, commanding the evil spirit out of him, but that also didn't work. So instead, they found a saw and they sawed off his head.
What the hell?
That's
escalates not where so I thought fast, that was going.
Like, I just
went from
love the
stick
order
to saw.
I know the order of operations here is so like try the stick. If that doesn't work, see if God will do anything. No, get the saw. You know, like it's just so funny.
I have notes for these guys, but also like I don't know what I would not be there at all, I guess.
Yo, but
I'd like to
if they
think
had let
that I would, but I wouldn't.
I think if they had let Ivana go to the grave, she would have had that shit done in 10 minutes. Which there's nothing that said they didn't let her go to the grave. She probably didn't want to.
I was
going
to ask,
but
yeah, okay. I was going to ask if there was like, did she try and they didn't let her, or
no,
was this
I'm just making shit up.
Okay, we can assume. No, we can like, yeah. Let's say that. Who cares?
Start a rumor.
She tried. Oh my god, yeah. Let's start another rumor.
Yeah.
1 rumor per episode.
Oh, that's a good goal. I love that KPI. That's a good metric for us.
We far exceeded it last week. to the point where I feel kind of bad. I want to make sure everyone knows we're not here to be conspiracy theorists. But if there are conspiracies, we're going to theorize for sure.
It's performance art.
I was going to say, maybe Gina's here to be a conspiracy
I was
theorist.
trying to...
I don't know what that face is, but...
I'm kind of here to theorize, and I do like conspiracy. Anyway, okay,
I'm trying to hit the disclaimer.
So they took the saw, right? They started sawing off Jure's head. And it said that as soon as the metal pierced his flesh, Jure tilted his head back and let out a bone-chilling scream. Mm-hmm. Blood started pouring from the... That was a really funny noise.
It's just... That's so gross. I hate that.
Blood started pouring from the wound on his neck. But too much blood for just one person. Almost as if the blood of his victims had been inside him this entire time. As the blood started to fill up his grave, one of the villagers, a blacksmith, nailed his corpse to the bottom of the coffin, and then, just to be safe, they rolled a boulder on top of his body.
Sure.
Just to really make sure. Yeah. The men stepped back. And you can only imagine that they stood there just like waiting for Jure to get back up and fight again and do something else. But he didn't. He was dead. For real this time. And then all at once, it was over. No more knocks on the door late at night. No more corpses. And Ivana was able to sleep for the first time in 16 years as peace finally returned to the region.
Damn.
Yeah.
I want to know more about this tongue nail ritual. Like, is that something we should be doing?
It was one of those things where I don't know if you experienced this in your Bathory episode, but I was researching this up until like the very last second, which meant that there were some factoids that I only found out about 10 minutes before we hopped on the call. And so I was like, oh shit, I don't have time to like, because I had the whole like the outline built and I knew what I was going to say, but I was reading stuff just to make sure I got it all right. And there were some things that I was like, oh, that would have been cool.
Yeah. So that's the thing with stories like this, because we have an hour to tell like a whole ass legend, which should be enough, but it's not. There's a lot that contributes. Yeah.
Yeah. You want to talk about the legacy of Jure Grando a little bit? Because it is fascinating.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, sweet. So history knows Jure is a vampire, right? The first one with a name, anyway. He wasn't like actually considered the world's first vampire, so nobody get on my case about that. He's the first one called a vampire who had a name. But who and what he actually was is still very much contested to this day. Was he actually a vampire? Was he really just a serial killer who faked his own death so that he could get away with murder without suspicion? Some people even think that Ivana made the whole story up to cover up the fact that she had taken a lover. I think that argument's dumb as hell, and it holds not a single ounce of water in my heart, but some people think that.
I don't like it, but I'm drawn to the like the death faking theory. I love a good fake death. I would never be able to pull it off. I would never be able to do that. So I'm always very intrigued by that.
You know how I was telling you the other day that I have like a list of things I want to do before I'm 30? One of them is not to fake my own death, but
I was going to say, you better finish that sentence.
It's not to fake my own death, but it's to plan out how I would fake my own death, just in case I ever want to.
We've talked about this. Yes, I do remember it. You've mentioned this before. I think I'm part of one of the plans. I don't remember what my role was, but I remember I was given a role in one of your scenarios.
We were going to drive a car off of a cliff, I think.
Were we?
I think we were. And I remember
I don't remember the plan, so I believe you.
Oh, well, looking back on it, it's not a very good plan, because I think, if I'm remembering this correctly, in the plan, we were going to use, we were going to make sure the car was set on fire, and we were going to throw, like, pig organs in the car, because pig organs are very...
organs.
Yeah, really similar to human organs. Like, in, like, heart valve transplants, you can use, like, heart valves from a pig and stuff. I don't think that would work because it's a fucking pig. Like, I don't think they would be confused. And also, why would there be like a heart and a liver but no bones?
It's a great question.
One
that I wouldn't ask, but someone hopefully would.
Yeah.
I would just be like, damn, that sucks.
Yeah. But so anyway, back to our boy Jure. So his story has been explored at length in both modern and historical texts, and it's said to have inspired authors like Stoker, like we were talking about last time, and also Byron as well. So much so that Jure Grando is actually considered one of the first Byronic vampires, which I didn't know about this, and I'm sorry if you do know about it. But Byronic vampires are essentially what we know of as vampires today, right? They stand against civil and religious authorities. They are sexually active, and they're kind of conniving assholes. They're strategic in the way that they hunt. Before this time, though, going back to what we were talking about earlier, vampires were described as just much more animalistic. They were just kind of gross, shaggy, very instinct-driven, more like an animal than we would think of as a vampire today, which is more human-like. This story, the story of Jure Grando, is one of the first instances where we see forethought in vampiric behavior and even elements of masochism with him knocking on people's doors to scare them before ultimately killing them. He was playing with his prey, essentially, which in my eyes, the whole story and the evolution of vampires, it just has become so much more unsettling over the years. When we move away from vampires who just need blood to survive or who just want to be a parasite versus ones that actually want to cause physical and emotional pain. So scary. So I was so excited to tell you about this part. The first written record of Jure's story comes from an author named, are you ready for this?
Yeah.
Johann Weichard von Valvassor.
Great. Fucking love it.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah,
we can end here.
I'll talk to you never. Bye.
I love a Von. I don't know. It's just such a vibe. You can't have a name like that and not be a vampire of some sort. You just can't.
It's illegal. Or it should be.
Yeah.
So this dude, Valvassor, my boy, he was Jure Grando's contemporary, actually. And,
okay.
He published his book called The Glory of the Duchy of Carniola in 1689, just 33 years after Jure Grando's reign of terror ended. So these dudes existed at the same time, which makes this story a little bit more believable. And Valvassor's book is considered to be one of the first written records of a vampire, which is what gives Jure Grando the title of the world's first documented vampire. But the interesting thing about Valvassor is that his work was not fictional. It was ethnographic. So he covered topics like geography, history, agriculture. He wasn't just walking around writing folklore down. He was a very logic and fact-driven author. And his work, this book that I'm talking about, where he wrote about Jure Grando, that book is seen as something like an encyclopedia of the time in which it was written. So obviously, like, the story has grown and changed over time as it's been told and retold. But it begs the question, was this always just a story? Or is there a grain of truth in here that's still kind of echoing through the centuries, you know? Because by the time Valvassor would have written about this, it wouldn't have had time to spiral like that. And this was, I wasn't able to find a copy of the book that he wrote, or I should correct that. I was able to find a copy, but it cost like 2,000 euro, so I did not buy it. And I could also not find any English translated versions online, which was sad. So someday,
that's what I was going to ask, if it was like
I would love to
reprinted
read the original, or not, it doesn't need to be like a translated version of the original to see what he actually wrote down. Because again, this has been told so many times, and especially for somebody who doesn't speak Hungarian, you have such limited access to like the records for this, which actually, I don't know if Valvassor actually wrote it in Hungarian. I think he wrote it in a different language, but.
Oh, he was Hungarian?
No, I don't think he actually was Hungarian.
Or was he Croatian?
No, I don't think he was Croatian. I think he was German.
Oh yeah, he's a Von.
Yeah.
That's a German thing. I don't know if it's specific to German, but everyone I know who has the name Von.
Yeah.
And when I say that, I don't really know any. I'm just thinking of the Von Trapp family. You know who? I mean, this has to exist at like some library somewhere. Mm-hmm. So I wonder if you could track down, not to buy a copy, but I'm sure there's records in some archive somewhere over there.
Yeah. I'm going to keep looking for it. Like my journey with this story is not ending with this episode because I'm hooked now. I want to know I want to know how the story began and then how it evolved. Because it's a fascinating one. Yeah. Kringa still exists though. As you know, because I showed you a picture of it earlier.
I was gonna say that's a crisp photograph from 16 whatever the hell.
Yeah. But one thing that's nice is that Kringa, in a modern sense, seems to have really embraced this story as part of their heritage. They actually get millions of visitors every year off of vampire tourism.
Interesting.
And they have
cool.
Yeah, it's nice, right? They have a vampire-themed bar you can go to. And in the early 2000s, there was talk of putting up a plaque to honor the villagers who finally killed Jure. I couldn't find whether or not they did wind up putting the plaque up, but it was at least part of the conversation. It's a nice thought regardless.
I really like that because, not to keep talking about episode 1, but that was something I found very interesting about that story. Like, people don't like talking about Elizabeth Bathory. There is no encouragement for that to be discussed, really, and they don't love when people talk about it. So it's cool that, like, in your story, yes, this horrible thing happened, but also the focus is not on all of these people that were killed and this horrible thing that happened. It's on the people that made it stop. Mm-hmm. It's like a good story.
Yeah.
It's like a heroic whatever.
It is. And I like this story because I think it has multiple heroes in it. You know, because there's the original guy with the OG with the stick, Miho, who he cracks me the fuck up. I think he's so funny. There's Giorgio, who had the power to do something about it. And then there's Ivana, who was brave enough to speak up and get the ball rolling to take Jure down. It was a whole community kind of coming together against this force that was plaguing them. And it's scary, but it's nice.
Yeah. And all of those pieces are very important. Like, you have to have someone who's going to say something or, you know, acknowledge a thing. You have to have a kind of quote-unquote leader or someone helping to manage the situation and keep people calm and figure out who's doing what, etc. And then, you know, gotta have a stick guy.
Yeah, you gotta have your himbo with a stick ready to go. I feel so bad for Miho. He's probably looking down on me like, leave me alone.
He's like, I did the best I could.
I sharpened the stick. What do you mean it wasn't a weapon? But yeah,
you tried.
That's the story of Jure Grando.
Wow. Yeah, that's interesting. It's like I have so many questions, but also know that there's not that many answers immediately accessible to us for the questions I have. Like, I want to know more about this book, as do you. And like, was he like, what was he really? Was he actually a vampire, or was he the serial killer? Like, all of my questions are questions that have been asked and unable to be answered. So I don't. That's so creepy, though.
Jure Grando, from what I read, seems to be kind of the catch-all for vampiric inspiration. Like, every vampire story is like, we were inspired by Jure Grando or something like that, you know, just because he's such an old documented case. And I think it has so many hallmarks of traditional vampirism, like the knocking on the doors and the sucking blood and the being sneaky and killing people, you know?
This is wild. You know what? This is well, it's not off topic. It's about vampires, but it's another like little superstition that I have. But when you're talking about the knocking on the doors and just the myth of vampires needing to be welcomed in to a home in order to come in, I read somewhere one time to be careful about what your mat says. Like if you have a welcome mat outside your door, you are welcoming vampires into your house. So it's worth noting that my mat outside my door says turn back now.
I think I remember seeing that when we came to your place.
Yeah, it was a Halloween mat that we chose to just leave up all year long, specifically because I don't want vampires to feel welcome into my home. That was literally the reason. This wasn't just oh, that's a cute Halloween thing that we can keep up all year long. It was specifically because I'm like, I don't want to accidentally invite a vampire in.
I can't remember what my mat looks like now, and I'm going to go check immediately after we're done. Because it was one of those where we bought it at like the British equivalent of Home Depot just to have one, and then I haven't looked at it again in 3 years.
Right. Yeah. We have one at Christmas time that says let's get lit, and it has a string of lights on it. So that one's safe too. I literally will not buy a mat that says welcome on it.
By the way, happy 1 month until your birthday. It's September 3rd already.
Oh my God, thank you. I literally just got a text from my mom that said the exact same thing.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah.
Aww.
By the time this is published, my birthday will have passed. We mentioned my birthday last episode, but yeah.
Yeah. Oh, another fun tidbit about Jure Grando. The Grando part of his name, I read, only one of the accounts said this, so I don't know like how part of the kind of canon story it is, but it said that Grando was a nickname that they gave him because he was a bulky, kind of burly guy.
Oh, so that wasn't like a proper surname?
Based on the one account that I read that also did not link to any sources, yeah.
So we talked about a lot of stuff. Most importantly, Jure Grando. Okay, little spoons. Keep it cool.
Keep it creepy. Bye.
Oh, bye. I already put my finger on the stop button. So I'm going to say bye before I let go.